So I'm the organizing director with PLAN, the Progressive Leadership Alliance in Nevada. As the organizing director, I oversee all of our issue-based campaigns and work very closely with many of our coalition coordinators. At PLAN, we house the Nevada Immigrant Coalition, and then we also house the Nevada Housing Justice Alliance. I've been involved for a little bit over 12 years now, professionally working as an organizer for a little bit over 10 years. But I first got involved because I grew up knowing that I was undocumented. My family and I migrated to this country when I was 3 years old. When I graduated high school, I really wanted to find a way to still pursue my dreams. I was terrified about sharing my status with people, being publicly open about it. I was always taught that that is not something that you talk about publicly. But I also knew that if I didn't say something, I was never going to find solutions for myself. So I showed up. It turned out to be an event that was being led by immigrant youth from across the country. And, they were strategizing. They were planning on how to hold, at the time, the Obama administration accountable. So I stuck around and, I supported as much as I could, but most of it was still in the background, doing data entry, making phone calls, even cleaning the office and things like that. But then a few years later, they were able to win DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And I firsthand was able to experience how community organizing and policy advocacy can change somebody's life. I try to make sure that the work that I do is intersectional. When we talk about housing justice, immigrants are also included in that. When we talk about utility justice, immigrants are also connected to that or impacted by that. So to me, all of the issues that we work on, they're interconnected. Well, I think one of the things that we struggle with in Nevada is, unfortunately, we don't really have a lot of tenant protection laws in our state. For me, specifically, the intersection is sometimes the exploitation that immigrants face, especially if their landlords know that they're undocumented. Right now, a lot of our work is making sure that we can expand tenant protections for Nevadans. We've been successful in passing certain legislation in the last 3 years through our state legislature. The governor has unfortunately vetoed many of those. I think for me, what sustains me, it really is the people. It really is the community. You get a little jaded, right? Especially when you lose campaigns, when you feel that neoliberalism is just continuing to thrive. It can get very draining. But to me, it's important to ground myself in the community and in the power that they have and their vision for what the world should be, not what the world is right now. I was that shy kid. I was that shy person that didn't want to speak, that didn't want to share my ideas because I didn't know how they were going to be taken, or I didn't feel like I was smart enough, or, imposter syndrome kind of kicks in. So when I'm able to really invest in people and their leadership development and then see them flourish, for me, that's very grounding, because it reminds me that, we're building people power, but we're also giving power to people that often feel powerless. For me, the full circle moment is every single time, a new leader comes through the doors and maybe they're shy, they're concerned about what, we're doing or how we're doing things and not sure how they fit. But then eventually them finding their place in the movement. I love to see when our leaders come in, they don't believe in politics, they don't even want to vote, but then they grow so much that they end up becoming policymakers. They end up becoming legislators. I've had the privilege to see one of our leaders, Jovan Jackson, actually go through that process where he did not believe in election work. He did not believe in voting, and now he's an assembly member. So those kinds of moments are, I think, for me, where the full circle comes in. I think a lot about how I grew up, in poverty, being undocumented. I don't want other children to have to go through that. So that's what gives me energy as well, that I know how that felt as a child. And now I'm in a position of power. So I think my role is one, ensuring that we continue to invest in leadership development of people who are directly impacted. I am a strong believer that people closest to the issue have the solution. We can be overlooked as women of color. Our ideas sometimes can even be co-opted. There's been plenty of situations where I'm the only woman of color at the table. I think sometimes people can see us as, a little too emotional, and I've gotten some of that feedback in the past, but it's because I care. It doesn't mean that I'm less capable or, I can't analyze policy or anything like that, simply because I feel that anger in my belly. And honestly, like even doing this interview, like there's a level of risk because we know that organizers, people that are leading in some of this work, are becoming targets. So there's, a constant fear of, if I leave my house to come to the office, are ICE agents waiting for me outside? But to me, I bring it back to, no matter what I do it for my community. When I show up to work, I'm going to show up as my whole self. And that means as an undocumented woman, as a queer woman, as a woman of color, because those are the identities that are oftentimes missing in tables where the decisions are being made. I don't know how long I'll be in the movement. My goal is to be here as long as I can. But we never know what could happen. And I want to make sure that I don't close the door behind me, that I don't pull up the ladder behind me, but that I'm actually providing the same tools that were given to me to the next generation of leaders that are going to continue to do this work.
To learn more about women of color on the front lines, visit shelterforce.org.